Hello and welcome to another episode of the GCSUNScast. My name is Shane. Joining me on the phone is Tom, and we are here to discuss all things Gold Coast Suns. Some may call us the Gold Coast Suns 360. I may be referred to as Jared Waitley of the Gold Coast Suns chat, and that would make my good friend here, Tom, the Robbo. So, welcome to the show.
I think I might have said that to you, and it's your way of giving me a backhanded compliment. How's your week been, Shane?
Yeah, it's been quite busy. My work's usually keeping me running around. The election was on. We won't go into that because I've blocked you on Facebook. I was just sick of all of your election rants. I'm not one to get too caught up in it. But let's focus on the footy. We've got a lot to talk about today. We've got the Port game to go over. We've got to look forward to the Geelong game and Sir Doug Nicholls round this week.
Yes.
And we've got a bit of a deeper topic to go into. We're going to discuss a topic that's happened during the week to one of the close Suns. And I guess that's probably going to just naturally evolve into something a bit deeper and a bit wider than just sticking to the Gold Coast Suns, and probably look at it from a AFL perspective as a whole. All right, but let's start off by jumping into the news. And you've come across a article in the Gold Coast Bulletin by Tom Boswell regarding Connor Bednarik.
That's right. Yeah, Tom's a great writer for the Suns. He's usually right on the money, and I enjoy reading what he has to say, and especially when he agrees with what I have to say, which is I'll say it again: Connor Bednarik is a dead set certainty to be drafted by us this year. Look, it's not just Tom. He's referring to conversations by Cal Toomey and Luke Power, who are also predicting that Connor will go high in the draft. Not much more to say about it because we all know that Connor's a great little player. He is a little fella, but look, you need the little guys as much as the big guys. So, really excited to see how Connor goes, and good to see him, in the main news area there, because he is only an academy player. And he'll be playing for the Allies in their practice matches in the next couple of weeks against Vic Metro and Vic Country.
Oh, that's great. How do you say his name? I've heard on the podcast with Cal Toomey, they called it Bednarik. Yeah. I say it more along the lines of Bednarik.
Yeah.
Who's right? Who's wrong?
I thought Bednarik was the right one because that's what the NEFL commentators used. There is a Bednarik who plays for the NT Thunder, and I don't think and Connor's not the first in the family to come through the Labrador Tigers, so we'll have to find out. I've heard him recently on a podcast called Bednarik, and that was Luke Power, so he'd know. So we'll see.
Okay, well, if anyone from the Bednarik or Bednarik family is listening, any close friends, get in touch with us at the GCSUNScast and let us know how to pronounce it, because I think we're going to be saying that name a lot more in future episodes. Also, if you're new to the Gold Coast Sunscast, you can find us over at Twitter, at GCSUNScast. We're also on Facebook and YouTube. Just search GCSUNScast. And Tom, how can they listen to our episodes?
Oh, there's about 50,000 different ways to listen to our episodes, but obviously you've got we've got a YouTube channel you can subscribe to. What else are we on? We're on SoundCloud, and look, basically, if you already access podcasts on the internet, then chances are we're somewhere in your provider. And if you're not really used to checking out podcasts, you can always just go to iTunes. Just Google GC Sunscast, and you'll find a whole list of places where we are. And obviously, the more people who are doing searches for us and listening to our podcasts through the different stations, it makes it easier for us to find. But instructions are on our Facebook page if that was all a bit too fast for you.
Yeah, it's probably easier just to find us on the Facebook page. That's where we put all of our links. If you are tech inclined, we are on Google and Apple Podcasts. As Tom mentioned, iTunes is the same as Apple Podcasts. We're also on Spotify and iHeartRadio. So if that's your jam, it's a bit easier there to find us. And all this is possible thanks to our Patreon donors. So I'd like to go ahead and thank Old Soul, Jack's dad, Paul Vosti, Tom Kim, Chris Moore and James Wood for donating to the show and keeping it running each and every week. Alright, with that out of the way, let's jump into the Gold Coast Suns versus Port. Gold Coast Suns 51 defeated by Port Adelaide 89, so we end up going down by 38 points. The only multiple goal scorer for the Suns was Alex Sexton with 2 goals.
He got there pretty early too.
He did. It was a game where the Gold Coast Suns were right in it from the very start, but by the end of the game they'd faded out of existence. We only kicked 1 behind in that last quarter, so that brings back some scary memories from around this time last year. And 1 goal won in the third quarter. So after half time, the Suns were only able to kick 1 goal 2. Not exactly a good effort on the scoreboard. And that was probably just due to... I don't think it was our forwards. I think it was our midfield. Port just really got on top of us. And if I looked at some stats here, we did win the clearances, 42-40, but we lost the contested possession, 179 to 162. And that pretty much says it all. Port Adelaide were more ferocious, more hard at it, and more skillful with the ball after half time.
Yeah, I mean, it was probably 2.5 quarters there where the Suns were really scrapping for the lead, and in the lead for most of that time, although never by very much. So, to Port's credit, they pretty much answered everything the Suns could throw at them. Port a couple of goals in a row in the second quarter, and the Suns responded, I thought, pretty well. The elephant in the room for me is that there were 12 free kicks to Port Adelaide in that third quarter, and I just think that allows opposition to come at you in waves, and when they're assisted by, I'm not saying that the free kicks were all bogus. Some of them were pretty soft. Some of them were pretty weak, and definitely you could argue half of them were unnecessary or inconsistent. Probably is the best way to describe it, because we were getting pinged for things that they were getting away with. So yeah, I couldn't get past that. The commentators couldn't get past that, and then you know what happened? My Foxtel dropped out, and I could just see that it was going to be a slaughter in the final quarter, and I wasn't even really that upset that I couldn't watch it. Just watched on my app and watched Port Adelaide keep going up by a goal or a point or a goal or a point, and saw that we weren't doing much in response. So yeah, disappointing.
You mentioned free kicks. The final free kick count was actually in the Suns' favour. It was 25-22. I do feel your pain watching that third quarter. It did seem like, basically after half time, it felt like all the free kicks were going the way of Port. I did feel it was probably the other way. In the first half, we were getting a lot of the rub of the green. If we go back to that third quarter, probably the talking point with the free kicks there was Darcy McPherson gave away 4 free kicks in about 5 minutes of gameplay.
Yeah, against the same player.
Yeah, you watch the game, and watching those free kicks over again, they didn't really feel like they were massive free kicks. They just felt like maybe they were little slight infringements. But I think what's made it an issue is that it was 4 free kicks in the space of 5 minutes there. We're not privy to what was going through Darcy's head. You know, was he getting wrapped up with his teammate, his opponent? Were they getting under his skin? Or maybe he was just the sort of bloke that gets, this is it, I need to pull the team along, and he just puts a bit too much effort and energy into everything and doesn't stop in time to stop a free kick. I mean, I played footy like that as well. I was quite hard at it, and I'd very, very often push it to the edge. I'd get warned several times by the umpires for knocking a player over, several seconds after he'd taken a mark or something. So I sort of understand if that's why he gave away those free kicks.
Yeah, well, I mean, he laid 12 tackles, so the free kicks are going to be there. Eventually, the chances are you're going to get a bit high or get a bit in the back or whatever. But I just think a free kick just deflates the team. And another thing, it's really affecting a lot of games. Is this thing where the referee? Oh, sorry, getting stuck on my cross code there. The umpire will blow the whistle, and the defending players stop because they don't want to give away a 50-metre penalty, and then the offensive players have a couple of seconds to assess, look around them and go, okay, should we play on or not? And if that happens, it should be brought back.
That happened last week with Melbourne. The Suns players were running into a goal to kick a goal, and that didn't, they just said play on, despite the fact, I think it might have been Ainsworth, had pretty much come to a stop.
Exactly.
I don't know if it's the umpiring this year, or am I being more perceptive this year than previous years? But I just feel like umpires in general aren't getting as many correct decisions, or they're missing more than what they have in previous years.
I think they've got more things to be aware of and think about too. So, you can't be too hard on them when they've got to be worried about new rules like keeping the 9 metres when they mark it too. There was nine new rules came in. So I'm not even going to go through the whole lot of them. So that's 9 extra rules. They don't exactly replace old rules. They're just extra things. So I don't mean to blame the umpires. It's just when umpiring is inconsistent, that suggests something else is going on. Like, are they being coached, the umpires, at half time to say, oh, you're giving the Gold Coast too many things here, they're getting away with this and that, or I want you to, be extra hard on out of bounds on purpose. And it's just weird. I mean, things go for you, things go against you, and you go, so what? I didn't even isolate that in the Melbourne game as a game changing thing, but now that you mention it, it's a goal. We lost by a point, so of course it's a game change. I mean, it would have changed the whole complexion of the game, and maybe Melbourne beats us by 50 points, and it's you can't say it cost us the game, but these little things. So I think one fan I think wrote about the third quarter, which the umpires definitely influenced with there were times in the game where one side was getting the rub more, but definitely that third quarter changed the game, and the Suns need to build their resilience so that when this happens and when you have a few goals scored against you, you have to get the next one and get back into the game, because if you don't, you're going to get flogged by a margin when you don't deserve to. They played very, very well. Finally, we're winning the clearances. Finally, we're winning the stoppages. Right. And against Paddy Ryder and Scott Lysett, those guys, Lysett's a premiership ruckman. Like that was a brilliant effort by the midfield without Tuke Miller.
Yeah, it was. But just before we touch on the positives, I've got one more negative to bring up, and that was the 1%ers. Port Adelaide thrashed Gold Coast in this statistic.
Did they?
They had 83 1%ers to the Gold Coast's 39. That's just a huge discrepancy, and it's 1%ers. That 1%ers comes down to work ethic, to doing the basics, to tapping the ball to the right spots, just getting your body into those right spots. I thought the Suns were great in that first half. I was thoroughly impressed. I thought it was probably the best first half of football I've seen them play for a long time.
And just really unlucky not to have a 3 or 4 goal lead either.
Yeah, exactly. And it was the sort of pressure they brought into that game which would stand up in the finals. I've seen that pressure applied in tight, tough games in finals, and that was the sort of pressure the Suns brought in that first half against Port Adelaide. Unfortunately, they weren't able to handle it. It was an atrocious game for weather conditions. The rain was really coming down hard. And maybe our boys just sort of tired out. They would have had very heavy legs with that sort of weather, and the contested game they were playing. I think they just got tired out a bit too quickly and struggled to run out the game.
Yeah, I think there's a bit of that. And let's not forget, the team's done quite a lot of travel. Not nearly as much as last year, but we've done the Perth trips, we've done the Melbourne trips. This is our second Adelaide trip, so it does catch up with the young guys. Mind you, I thought there were guys who had been looking tired, like Charlie Ballard had been looking like he could do with a rest, and then he comes out and plays one of his best games. So yeah, and the coaches has been given a bit of a license to play a different role, and immediately gets better in front of his home crowd. So those boys would have had all their families and friends watching from the stands. So they walk away with their heads held high, but it's just that extra level that Port is able to go to, and they've got young players too. So I thought maybe King in the wet was just a bad luck. Like big guys come crashing back to the earth when the rain comes in that, and it really was bucketing down for a bit. My personal feeling is that Sam Day was the better choice. Sam Day would have given a better matchup for guys like Paddy Ryder. Given what Ben King couldn't do because it was just not suited to him, Sam Day could do with his body size and his footy smarts. So, and that's just a small criticism there. I know exactly why Ben King was selected, and last week I called for one or the other of them, so I got what I wanted.
Yeah, I thought King was good in his debut game. It was very, very tough for a key forward over 200 centimetres to perform in that sort of weather, especially in his debut game.
I thought his stats were a bit stiff too. I noticed there was one hand pass it was a short hand pass, but they gave him an ineffective hand pass, and I thought, well, it found its target, and then the target got pushed out of bounds. So that's an ineffective pass. I don't know. And I thought he had more than 5 touches. I guess disposals is what they're talking about there. But he was there pressuring the ball over the line. He was in at the contest. So, and
there was also that mark that wasn't paid in the first or the second quarter. It was clearly touched, at full flight in the air, and he ended up bringing it down. But the umpire decided not to call it.
That's right. I think there was a couple of times where he could have had marks, and either the slippery ball or that extra pressure the 1%ers that the Port defenders were exerting really showed him up, because he's just not quite ready.
Yeah, I mean, he laid... so he had 5 disposals, 3 of them were contested, so that's a good sign that he's getting in there using his body when he is reading the ball. He did look a little lost at times early on, but that's expected. Look, I saw enough signs from him with his leading patterns and stuff to suggest that he is going to be a good player, and he just needs that bit of time to adjust to the level. Whether he keeps his spot for this week, I'm not quite sure yet. It's really going to depend on injuries, and we'll talk about that in a minute. All right, well, who were your 3-2-1 votes for this game?
Good question. I think you'd have to be mad if you didn't say that Fiorini wasn't the best player for the Suns. The 38 disposals is just, 13 contested. It's just amazing. And considering he'd been out. So, obviously that was just precautionary, and he's come back fit and firing. And showing leadership too, because Tuke Miller being out is a big blow for us. So, I thought he was terrific. And Jack Bowes was just hard at the ball all day. If he couldn't win it, he'd at least make a contest of it. Very few errors, and there's a lot to like about Jack. And I actually, even despite his brain fades in the third quarter, I thought Darcy McPherson was actually one of the guys who was really trying to get the team into it, and that's why I was frustrated by the free kicks, because he wasn't malicious. He wasn't vindictive. He wasn't trying to injure somebody. He was trying to get the ball. He was trying to get the team going forward, and the umpires just kind of put him out of the game. But 12 tackles he made. The 20 possessions were handy, and he also had a goal assist, Darcy. So those were my three.
Yeah, I can't fault that. McPherson definitely gets an honourable mention for me. So does Ainsworth as well. He had 27 pressure acts. So those two boys were great. They provided the hard contested footy and were able to produce a little bit of skill on the outside. Ainsworth finished with a goal as well. All right, my 3-2-1. Well, the 3 votes, obviously no-brainer. Fiorini, 38 disposals, 4 marks, 5 tackles, and a 674 metres gained. So he was the best for the Suns as far as moving the ball. Lockie Weller gets my 2 votes with 24 disposals, 4 marks, 518 metres gained. And what was probably most impressive about Weller's game was he was the most effective Sun using the ball with 83% disposal efficiency.
Which in the wet is just incredible. Yeah. He had a couple of clangers, but you're entitled to, aren't you? If everything else is hitting the chest. And
he kicked a beautiful torp as well, coming out of the back half there at one stage. And the other bloke that kicked a beautiful torp was Jack Bowes, who gets the 1 vote. His 24 disposals and 16 contested possessions was really crucial, and he obviously kicked a goal as well in that game. So yeah, that's my 3-2-1.
Backing up, you can always find Bosey in the goal square, can't you?
Yeah, he does like to get behind and get a goal. It's good. We need more midfielders with that goal sense, and this year we're starting to find them with Fiorini and Bowes kicking goals. All right, do you have any highlights from this game? Do we have a water performance moment? I struggled to find one.
Yeah, you know what? Actually, I think I'm not even going to isolate them, but the Fiorini's goal, sort of to start the game off, to the first goal. When the Suns get the first goal, you know they're up and about, and it was your favourite kind of. Or maybe not favourite, but you've coined it the Gold Coast Suns wave. So the ball came into 50 and it hit the deck, and everyone was trying to pick it up, and it was a little bit greasy, and Fiorini just picked it up and plonked it on the left and threw for a goal, and all the Suns were up and about, and Fiorini had got that start to his game that he needed to propel him to the game that he ended up with. So. That was it for me.
Well, Fiorini, you get the...
Lockie Weller, what a performance!
So you take it off your teammate Lockie Weller, and you get the what a performance moment of the week. We've got Robin Wyatt on the chat, and she's saying Darcy first in my team. So she's obviously got a bit of love there for Darcy McPherson, and... I think everyone really loves his hard-at-it nature, his work ethic that he's bringing into that midfield.
Yeah, I think Robin's been a very long-time vocal advocate for Das. So calling for him to come into the side when he was in NEFL, and so that's a very consistent. And isn't it good when you see your favourite player who's an up-and-comer? We called it last year that the Suns really missed McPherson when he got injured, and he's done so well to get back to where he is, because he was not guaranteed top 22, and now you can't see him going back to the NEFL this year, can you?
No. All right. If you are listening live on the chat, jump in, have a chat to us. Let us know what you thought of Ben King's debut. It'd be interesting to see what other people thought of that. He didn't get much of the ball, but from my perspective, I thought he was doing enough stuff without the ball to justify it, considering it was his debut game as well. All right, well, we've got some injuries to cover. So the AFL.com.au has just released an injury list, so I'm pulling this from there. Achi is listed as a test, so is Crossley and Fletcher and Tuke Miller. We've got Hanley, TBC, Rankin 2 to 4 weeks, Shear 3 to 5 weeks, and Young 3 weeks. Okay, so from that, it doesn't look like Hanley is going to be up and about for this game against Geelong, which I think we all realised that after we found out what happened to him last week. Touk Miller looks like he's a good chance to come back, and I think he would. We really missed a midfielder in that game, and I think we may have been too heavy. So hence why I think King might be unlucky in losing his spot this week versus Geelong. I just think we need that extra midfielder to create a bit more defensive pressure.
Yeah, they generally tend to try to give a few games in a row to someone who's just come in, but I don't know in this case. I think he's been blooded, and it was a needful week off, so it was good for him to have that continuity. But yeah, you're right, he might come out. But we still haven't heard any updates on Witsy.
Well, yeah, that's the other issue. If Wits is injured, surely we've got to go ahead and play Tom Nichols. We can't ruck Peter Wright full time.
No, so probably Sam Day would have to come in as well, in my opinion, because Geelong's they're big boys, and Nichols being 2 years since he's played an AFL game, he's not going to be able to last the entire game because no one can, and it's just the experiment of Peter Wright being the half forward and the ruckman. He can't do both. He did pretty well against two full-time ruckmen on the weekend, but doing pretty well and then not doing his other job very well, that's, we want more than 1 or 2 goals out of him. So, bring in Sammy is what I say, but I've been saying it all year.
Yeah, I'm not against Sam Day, but obviously I don't think we can play 4 talls. You can argue Lukosius could play on the wing, and I think that's where he's better suited, yes. But at the same time, I don't think King, Wright, and Corbett between them has enough energy to apply pressure in the forward line. So I think if King stays, then maybe Corbett or Lukosius has to go out.
Yeah, I don't think it'll be Corbett, and Lukosius was better, but he's not going to win a game for us at this stage.
No. So I think maybe Brodie or Touk Miller needs to come into the side. Hopefully Miller will be fit, but if he isn't, I think Brodie's got to pretty much be given a shot here. I wouldn't say guaranteed, because we've seen all year that Brodie isn't guaranteed anything. No. The other damning stat from this game that we're looking at is Geelong average over 100 points per game, while the Suns are only averaging 61. So very opposite ends of the spectrum there, and it could get very ugly if the Suns don't come in with the game plan, and at the same time Geelong come in without a couple of key players. It looks like Dangerfield and Ablett could be missing. Dangerfield's obviously got his ankle injury, and it's been mooted for 3 or 4 weeks now that Ablett might be missing this game, more so rest and management.
Interesting, yeah, because he's starting to get Brownlow votes again, and he's up at the tribunal every week. He didn't get suspended this week, did he?
No, he didn't.
He keeps hitting blokes high. Yeah. Oh, look, we're going to get into a similar topic in a minute, but I'd hate it if Gaz comes back to Metricon and gets more than one boo. Like, boo him the first time he touches the ball, but then just leave it alone. I don't like seeing Ablett get booed, and he will.
Yeah, but I think it's a different case. Booing a player because he used to play for your team is fine. I don't think there's any insult or derogative terms towards that booing. I think let's jump into this. So, yeah, it's a real shame that this sort of issue is coming up ahead of Sir Doug Nicholls' round, where we recognise the Indigenous figures in our game. But there was an incident that occurred in the last week with one of our favourite sons, Calamachi. He basically went into a shop and was, I guess you'd say it was racially vilified. He heard the shop attendants say things about him and probably stereotype him, who he was, because of the colour of his skin. And the sad thing is this is the second incident in the last 1 or 2 months. So it sort of explains why we haven't seen much of Calamachi. We heard earlier in the year he was out with personal issues, and it's starting to become clear that this may have been what part of it. Obviously not this incident that we've just brought up this week, but an incident that might have happened earlier. I mean, it's just a real shame that this sort of thing happens this day and age. We put up a Facebook post when we heard about it from one of the family members of Callum, and, you know, we got so much good support. So many people were just shocked that this happens this day and age.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I guess we really just want to bring it to people's attention that this stuff isn't on. You can't stereotype someone. It's not right to stereotype someone anymore. It's not right to judge someone or say things about someone based on the colour of their skin or the way they look or their religious beliefs or political beliefs. It's just not cricket, is it?
No, it's not. It's really not. And this one really affected me. I just thought, what can we do? And you just feel so powerless because you just know that it's the 0.01% who are responsible, and everybody else just is disgusted by it. But you know, if you're not there, if you can't see it, you know, you you respect the player's privacy, and you know he has been injured as well, so you know you're already down and out, and then something like that happens, and you know it's not the Gold Coast, right? The Gold Coast isn't that place. You know, I grew up on the Gold Coast, and yeah, look, 35 years ago it was pretty white and pretty blonde-haired kind of place, but it's always had this sort of multicultural mix, and you know, Polynesians, and you know, these days you could see a Japanese person who's got an Australian accent because their parents came here and they were born and bred here, but they're 100% Japanese. You know, it's a really multicultural place, and this just isn't representative of us. It hasn't broken in the press, probably because you know it's personal, and it sounds like the club's kind of, you know, managing it, and he's getting all of the right support and counselling and time, and he's injured anyway, so he's due to come back this week, we hope. But you know, this kind of thing, it's oh, geez, it's just really disappointing, and I don't think that if you're not Indigenous, I don't think you can really understand how much it hurts and how much it, you know. I mean, I wouldn't blame him if he wanted to leave the club, not because of the club, but because, you know, the club's not moving, and if he's feeling like people are you know, in 2 incidents and people are behaving in this way. I really hope that the club follows through, and those people, you know, I don't want to suggest a punishment for them, but you know, I hope that there's consequences.
Yeah, I mean, you can say it's ignorance. There's obviously a certain age group or generation gap that would be ignorant, and then there's also probably more of another generation which would not really think about it and just use it as an insult. I mean, if you're having a crack at someone because of the way they look or their belief or something as obvious as that, and you're insulting them on that, that's just a really cheap insult. It's really not worth it. You just look like an absolute idiot.
Yeah.
You know, the thing to do is, it's also, if you witness something like that, you've got to you've got to stand up and say no to that. I mean, I work in an industry which is full of different nationalities, different types of people from different countries. And I work next to someone that's quite often will mutter under his breath or say something, a derogative racial slur. And I pull him up on it every time. I say, no, you don't say that. You know, there's no need to say anything like that. It's just not on. And more people need to stand up and do it because, you know, what's the worst what can happen? I mean, you're helping someone, you're making someone feel valued, you're making someone feel appreciated in the community. And essentially that's what we hope for Callum Archie. We hope that he and his brothers, his sisters all feel appreciated. And I reckon every single listener of the Gold Coast Sunscast and every single Suns fan would love to have him here and be playing his best footy. And they don't give a shit what his, excuse my language, they don't care, you know, what he looks like, whether he's religious or not. So, you know, this sort of thing just isn't on. All right, well, I've had my piece. You know, we could really go into a rabbit hole talking about this stuff with all that good stuff
the
that's
last
just
thing
come
I
out.
is just repeat what you said at the start, which is we had some really great feedback, and you know, excuse me, and everyone's wanting to wish Cal all the best.
Yeah, absolutely. So hopefully Callum and his or his family or friends are listening to this, and they get the you know, the energy, the support that we're trying to give out there for them. Let's open this to a bit of a wider discussion as far as fan behaviour goes. I want to have a chat about that while we're on this topic. It's not often that we get to venture away from talking specifically Gold Coast Suns stuff. But fan behaviour, not only on a racial level, but insulting players, insulting umpires, that's not on either. That needs to stop. And I've been hearing a lot of this argument that punters come in, they pay their money, they're entitled to do that sort of stuff. Well, no, you're not. I mean, you're working. Do you want someone hurling abuse at you while you're just trying to do your job? Whether you're sitting at a desk answering phones, whether you're working in the supermarket, or whether you're out on the road as a construction worker or something, do you want people hurling abuse at you while you're just trying to do your job? That's not on.
Yeah, when you go to work, you don't deserve to have these things said. Look at Tom Boyd. He's a premiership player. He's very, very young. He's just retired. He's just walked away from millions of dollars because he just doesn't care anymore. And I've got to say, last year I was at the Ballarat game with the Dogs versus Suns, and the Bulldogs supporters were horrible. They were, every time Boyd went anywhere near the ball, they were all yelling out stuff like, oh, you're just doing it for the money, and, you know, you've got what you came for, and now you don't have to play anymore. You know, it just worse than that. But, you know, like, and they were relentless the entire game. The poor guy, like, if it's not a big stadium, you can hear what people are shouting out, especially in those lulls of the game, and you just get a, you know, I mean, there was one funny guy who was yelling out supportive stuff, and you know, we all sort of laughed it off. But you could see the player was just tense. He had his back to that section of the crowd the whole time. He was missing kicks at goal. He was just down in the dumps, and I'm not surprised. And I will say this, it's strong, but it's the Bulldogs fans that have pushed him to this.
Yeah, I mean, you said before you've got your opinion on booing, and you know, to a degree, you're right. I also think that players are also being put out there on a media pedestal in the entertainment industry. Essentially, that's what they are. They're athletes. But this day and age, an athlete is an entertainer. So, you know, they're going to be open to scrutinism, and my English has put me off a bit.
Scrutiny.
That's the word, scrutiny. They're going to be open to scrutiny and criticism for what they do. And I think as long as that stays under what they do and not who they are, if you're not insulting someone or criticizing someone for who they are and along the lines of what they do or what they have done, so their actions, I think it's all fine. I mean, some people can take it, some people can't, and that's where we then delve into this issue where we've got mental health and all this sort of stuff. I mean, that is real. My wife suffers from depression and anxiety, so I never used to believe it was a legitimate thing until my wife started suffering from it. So I do understand it a lot better now, and I have cut back my behaviour when it comes towards that sort of thing. But people are going through stuff and we might not know what it is. So you just got to be mindful that everyone's got a story, and you need to understand what that story is before you're qualified to make any sort of judgments or criticisms.
I mean, look at Lance Franklin and how much footy has he missed. You know, like if he doesn't, you know, if there could be 30 or 40 goals that he might have scored and put him up higher on the all-time list, or they could have, you know, Jack Stephen might end up having to cut short his career because he just can't be a high-profile football and deal with his mental health at the same time. You know, and they're just the high-profile ones. There are players who, you know, like Tom Boyd, Mitch Clark, a couple of years ago. He had the footy world at his feet, and within half a season, he was, you know, there's a lot of things that go into it. But I think what we'll be talking about in the next couple of weeks is the Adam Goodes documentary.
Yeah, that's certainly going to come up. Like, we're down to our last few minutes, so we should really sort of get this episode back on track. It's sort of gone off the rails a bit here. All right, so basically, to summarise, we just want fans to be more mindful of the players and the people that they're interacting with. And I think there's a line.
An umpire, they're going to feel it.
Yeah, we saw the incident that's gone to tribunal tonight, calling an umpire an effing cheat. There's a line there that above that line, you know, you can't question someone's integrity or their personal ethics, things like that. Basically,
and it's a high-profile player too, so I think the punishment shouldn't be a week off. It should probably be maybe mediation.
Yeah,
not necessarily with that particular boundary umpire, but with an umpire or a couple of umpires, and just sort of say, look, mate, you've had a whole career of, you know, laying into us. How about you set a better example and publicly apologise, you know?
Yeah, definitely. All right, well, we should wrap this up. I mean, I think we've got our point across. We're just against racism and vilification on any sort of level, gender-specific discrimination, mental health, all that sort of stuff. Everyone just needs to be, I guess, more human.
Especially
be aware
with
of what's
Sir
right
Doug
and what's
Nichols
wrong.
round coming up.
Exactly.
And just a quick prediction, Port usually flogs us, and they didn't exactly give us a flogging, although it was a bit of a blowout in the end. Geelong has been torching us, absolutely killing us. I don't think they'll kill us, but they're just too irresistible for us at the moment. So if we manage to beat them, that'd be tremendous.
Yeah, I do think that Geelong's a danger game for us. Getting eerie feelings of this time last year, I think it was, where we started getting some real floggings. Geelong was one of those teams that gave it to us.
That was a big game last year.
If Dangerfield and Ablett are out, I think we've suddenly got a bit of a chance to sneak a win. But I'll be hoping that the Suns can keep it to below 5 goals. So 30 points or less, and I'll be happy with that result. All right, one other thing. If you haven't checked out our Facebook page, go over there. We've actually posted up a picture of a GCSUNScast T-shirt. It's our first prototype of a T-shirt, and I'm planning on wearing it this weekend to the game versus Geelong. So if you see me, give me a shout out. Say hi. I'm happy to chat footy as long as I'm not watching the game. And that'll be it. Time to go. Go Suns.
Go Suns.